Hello everyone, this is the Emax FreeStyle. If you're familiar with the TinyHawk S parts, it uses pretty much the same stuff, except the motors are 1103 7000 kV and the props are a van 2.5 inch. The flight controller is an F4 using the Maytech F411 Betaflight target, 5 amp 4-in-1 ESC, motor wires are soldered on. This little board is the VTX that is 25 milliwatt and 37 channels and has a 600 TV line CMOS camera. Battery connection is two PH20 connectors soldered onto a little daughter board there. Control link or receiver is D8 or D16 mode, although I've never used D16 on these. We have a 16 volt 100 microfarad capacitor. Motor post to motor post, it looks like 115 millimeters. Bottom plate looks like 2 millimeters. Top plate is 2 millimeters as well. Arm thickness is 3 millimeters. Front arm thickness is 3.5. Out of the box, the battery lead is secured to the frame. VTX antenna does come mounted just as you see it. The bind button is just above that print that says bind. This button on top changes your bands and channels on the VTX. If you change a channel to one of the channels that's locked out, you'll have to then either unlock the VTX or use the button to find a channel that is unlocked. Camera is connected to the board via this plug. It weighs almost 52 grams. It comes with two 450 milliamp 1S batteries, which brings the weight up to 78 grams. It comes with a number of screws, grommets, nuts, and a nylon standoff for repairs, a 6-port USB charger, an extra set of props, stickers, and an Emax carrying case. So this is kind of Emax's entry into the Toothpick or the HyperLight or the Twig category that has been pretty hot right now. And as you can tell, it's pretty dang quiet. These props are real quiet. I would say they're more quiet than the traditional bi-blades that we've been running. And I picked this particular flight not because it was my best flight, because something really cool happens and it is coming up. I'd like to lay claim that I planned it this way, but sometimes awesomeness happens by accident. I'm gonna pop up, watch me hit this gap right there. Haha. Well, as I said, I'd like to lay claim that it planned that way, but I almost hit the leg of the swing set, and as I throttled up to get out of the way of that, I ended up hitting that gap, and here we go again. This is more typical of what I was trying to do. So I kind of out myself, so there was no fooling you for that. But it flies pretty well. I think this is going to be one of those that it's not the fastest. It's not the most powerful, but what it is it's going to give you a really efficient flight. You're going to find that it's going to fly for well over 4 minutes in the way I'm flying it, and if you fly it differently, you may find you get 5-6 minutes. And that's going to be really important for training flights. For those people who are maybe early in their FPV journey, and they're not necessarily looking for the fastest, most powerful micro on the market. This one's going to be reliable. We know it's got tried and true tested parts, but if you've got one of the previous machines that has the similar VTX, which is the one complaint I hear about, you may not be happy with this, although you can replace the VTX if you want the quad and you just want to DIY your own VTX in there. But I found it very serviceable. I am using my Fat Shark HDO goggles with a rapid fire module that is running a little bit of an old firmware. But back to the flight, you know, it's called the FreeStyle, and I'm not a great FreeStyle pilot. I'm sure there's other pilots out there that could show you the FreeStyle capabilities of it. It is running Betaflight 4, a full release, released April 11th, and it has been tuned by Emax, and I'll show you that tune when we get back to the desk. And I think they've done a pretty nice job of tuning it up, and that's another benefit for people who are getting started in this hobby, is that tuning can be a little bit of a black box or a little bit of a wizardry thing, because it takes time. You kind of don't know what you're looking for, and Emax is taking care of that by having their team pilots work on this and get a tune that is very good. I do think the tune is kind of at the limit of what the motor and the prop combination can give you, although I wouldn't be surprised if they came out with better PIDs, possibly, you know, down the line. They're always working on these things. You may find a Project Mockingbird tune, which is a tune that a lot of people like to use. I think it's kind of a combination of self-stabilization as well as just an optimized tune for that sort of locked-in feel that we like to use. But as you can see, I can whiz around these trees and stuff, no problem. It's pretty quick, and the super wide field of view of the camera, that helps to kind of create some perception of additional speed, which I say perception, and that may come across negatively, but whether it's real speed or perceived speed, it's still fun. I enjoy that. The wider field of view on cameras, the more fun I have. It doesn't matter how fast the quad really is. I really enjoy the super wide field of view that we get in some of these CMOS cameras. Pay attention to the image that you see on screen, because some people don't care for it, and that's just something that you have to look at the video and decide, yeah, I like that machine, how it flies, I like the length of time it flies, I like the image that it produces, I like what I've seen so far, and that will help make you your purchase decision. Something else about Emax products is it's a company that's been around, and they take care of their customers. So if you need parts, you can find parts. If you need help, you're going to find large groups of people that can lend a hand in finding out what maybe you crashed and you broke something and you're trying to figure it out. there'll be a large community of people that can help you with that, primarily on Facebook, but you also will be able to turn to their support. I think on Facebook the support will be a little bit more timely because the people response, and everybody's just on Facebook all the time. But you do have the capabilities of emailing support to find out what you can do to get your machine back up in the air, or if you're just having random problems. Now, typically this comes with a FrSky receiver, so that's one thing that you're going to have to look at, that if you don't have a receiver that does the FrSky protocol, then you're probably going to have to either obtain one, or you can add your own receiver. Again, it does have the same TinyHawk S board that we've seen previously, and you can add a receiver to it. That wraps up our flight there at about 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and let's head back to the desk. The FreeStyle is a good training quad. It's going to be robust. It's got good thick carbon, it looks to be. It's got a cap on there for any voltage spikes you might have. It comes with two 450 milliamp batteries, and when you're training or you're trying to learn the sticks and trying to get used to FPV, you want to spend more time in the air. And in the case you want to spend more time in the air, I would recommend some 520 batteries. These can be picked up from various places. I'll put some links down below, but I found I got 25 to 35 more seconds of flight time on these batteries. So depending upon how you fly, how much throttle you're using, you may find you get much more than that. I'll put a link down in the video description where you can get these batteries as well as the FreeStyle. So the PIDs that you see there on screen are the PIDs that I flew with. It does come with a secondary profile of PIDs that you can try out as well. And then I've got a little screenshot of the beta flight and the version, just so you can get some visual representation of what I'm talking about. A few little details. We do have Emax's tape, which has become a favorite of mine, holding down our motor wires, and that's a good thing, so they won't get chopped up. As I mentioned, the battery lead is secured down. That's a good thing, so if you have a battery ejection, it shouldn't pull loose from your board. It might damage this end out here, but that's a minimal concern. For those pilots that might be a little bit more experienced and want to run an XT30, I'm sure you'll probably just lop this off and put your XT30 on. But for people who have been flying these type of batteries, this can be really handy because you don't have to make another investment into batteries. And I did just fly it like this. I put the batteries up top just like this, and then I plugged my batteries in, and I just kind of pushed everything up. And I found that kept this secure and out of the way, so it didn't flop around and didn't get in my props. I think if you have these connected, these wires are thick enough off the batteries, they can hold this little lead just fine. That's how I ran mine. I did not put any sort of battery pad underneath. I found that even in crashes, it would only slightly shift forward, maybe out to the edge of the camera, but I never had a battery ejection. We can't really look at the weave because they've done the paint when the paint is a nice design. Also, let me get my calipers out and we'll measure the distance on these motor holes because these are different than other motors we've seen before. So screw hole to screw hole looks like it's 7 millimeters. And I'm sure Emax will have more dimensions on these motors once this actually becomes available. As I'm recording this, this quad isn't actually for sale, but will be by the time you're seeing this video. I do expect the structure of the frame to hold up well. I did crash it a number of times. The only thing that I'm concerned about is these props are real stiff, and I'm worried about when we strike the prop that the transfer of that force is going to end up on the motor and or stressing down here. But you can see we've got a pretty good amount of material around the outer edge, which is typically where these things break. They'll break between the screw hole and the edge of the carbon, but we've got some pretty good material there, so I'm hopeful that despite my concerns that this will hold together fairly well. Of course, obviously it did for me. Everybody crashes differently. We can't crash all the same way on all the same surfaces. If you're just starting out, I would avoid asphalt, concrete, and other super hard surfaces. I'd find a nice grassy field, someplace like my backyard, and maybe avoid trees to get the handle on things. Hopefully you can see there we've got some extra pads, and that's what you'd use to add your own receiver if you're not going to be using the included one. We've got a rubber grommet here that minimizes vibrations that might come from our prop and motor up the arm into the flight controller, so that's a good thing. So it's soft mounted all the way around, and you do get an extra grommet. The connectors we're not using in this particular case. They solder these directly on. If you get replacement motors, they may or may not come with connectors. Again, at the time of this recording, I don't know that specific detail. The VTX is connected via these pins, so if you wanted to replace the VTX, you've got a little bit of soldering work to do there. That won't necessarily be easy, but I expect if you're trying to take that on, you already have build experience and you've developed your own technique for separating such a thing. The camera has two positions, as you can see from these two slots, and in my video, I was flying with the most camera tilt that is available. I'll also note that there is a rubber grommet right down here, which again, you get a spare of in the kit, and that helps to minimize any possible jello that might be coming into the video. I didn't find I had any. You may have noticed some wobbles from moment to moment. I live in a place where the wind blows pretty regularly, but on the particular day of the flight that I've shown you, it wasn't blowing particularly hard. But when you get up above the house, the wind can definitely pick up, and then it causes a little bit of the wobble, especially at 0 throttle. Another detail I don't have at this time is the price point, so I'll have a link or links down in the video description below. Click those links, find out the price point, some additional specs that I may have missed. Will also be included in the product description pages. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.